Welcome to another edition of Action 14. I'm Mike Briggs. I'll be bringing you information from the schools, the city, and the arts. I start out with Superintendent Dan Mello. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
It's a very busy time of year. We're going to have some music in the background during our show here because they're preparing for Bye Bye Birdie.
And you can hear across the hall, there's the basketball practices going on. They got some kind of timer set that's going off every about 5 minutes. So yeah, it's very, very, very busy. And this is the time when things really start to ramp up in that end of February, early March time, March Madness. But it's not just March Madness in basketball. It's March Madness in basketball, in swimming,
in wrestling,
and the shows. We have our musicals both here and at the middle school.
Right.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
But the good news is we haven't had a lot of health issues.
Yes.
You know, knock on wood. But we haven't had a lot of health issues for all of the craziness going on.
Yeah, fortunately, you know, our school has basically always reflected the community spikes and valleys of COVID all along. And currently, again, knock on wood, we've had a long stretch of relative health, both for the kids and for all the adults that work in the district. So I think today was the first day that we had some staff member in our district test positive since the 24th of the end of last month. So we've had a nice long stretch here of having most of our staff available, and yeah, so that's been great. And we haven't had a lot of kids that have been out sick with COVID. We had some other things popping up, typical winter types of things, but it's kind of nice to have that spike that we are experiencing in January be over.
Yep, and so many activities right now that we want to just keep everybody as healthy as possible.
Right, you get into that playoff series of activities. So just imagine if you're a swimmer or a wrestler and it's an individual sport and you have to be out because of an illness and it's your regional.
Yeah.
That is just really tough because you can't skip the game. Like in basketball, you could skip the game and join them back up if they won in your sectional rounds.
Right.
If you're a wrestler and you lose, or well, you can't participate in regionals, that's it.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you were a two-time state champion coming back and trying to go for 3. That would be tough.
Yep. And we hope everything works out for everybody. So far, so good. Let's leave it at that.
So far, so good.
Yes. We've got some legislative update that you have some information.
Right. Again, every month, the district administrators from Sheboygan County meet with our representatives in the state legislature. Sometimes we'll get one of the people from the national legislature that come in and visit with us too. But it's generally our state legislature, and so we always advocate for things that are important to schools and things that are important to kids and communities. You know, the ability to fund programs so you can have the shows and the extracurriculars and all of that, and keep the lights on and keep good things happening for kids. And so that's what our role is. And they'll typically ask us for input on bills that come across from anywhere in the state related to education. So again, there have been a few things that have happened this year where we've advocated for something and we've been at an impasse, and so we just continue to work on those things. We generally listen to each other very, it's a good working relationship. Currently, we're continuing to advocate for a per pupil increase on the revenue limit because we didn't receive any new money from the state in the last biennium budget. And so what that is causing is all of our regular expenditures. Everybody knows inflation is up there a bit, and so gas is more expensive, and the rates of insurance are probably going to be coming in higher this year. Well, all those things are increasing, but yet our per pupil expenditure revenue limit is set at the 2020 level. We have some federal dollars that we're able to expense right now for those things, but those disappear in a year and a half.
Right.
And so any of these inflationary forces will be back to put up against 2020 levels of spending in a year and a half. So even though we've got these federal dollars, it's hard to put that money onto something that's going to be a reoccurring expense over year after year, like a raise or like a insurance increase or gas and heating increases. Because in a year and a half, we won't be able to fund it that way.
Right.
We'll have to cut things in order to make our budget meet itself. And there's no reason not to put a little bit more money onto the per pupil expenditure. Governor Evers put out a proposal to give every household and I think every taxpayer in the state a refund of $150 and still put some additional dollars onto the per pupil expenditure limit at the state level. And that just sounds reasonable to me. There's such a huge surplus at state government, which is just sitting there. And right now, we could expense it in his proposal. It was for roads, it was for education, it was for a tax dollars back to individuals. But we're running into roadblocks, and there's political fighting, and people are posturing and all of that. But we're just continuing to advocate for that, because otherwise we don't want to be put in a situation where in a year and a half we're having to cut programs or to not hire back teachers or something like that when there's no reason to. We've got a huge surplus at the state level.
Yes.
So that's one of the issues. There continue to be there are issues that are being floated out there by politicians related to parents having the ability to opt their kids out of a class if they disagree with what a teacher is teaching, or some of these ideas coming across that these social battle bills are out there. We in general we get along with everybody. We play it right down the middle, and we want to make sure kids get what they need and get what they need to thrive. And some of these bills that are being floated out are just kind of floated out to sort of discredit public education, and that doesn't help anybody. Our local businesses love the fact that we've got a strong public education presence in the whole Sheboygan County region, because it's a detractor for people to come here. We need to keep that strong, and we need to say, yeah, our public schools are doing great, our private schools are doing great. Let's celebrate those things, and let's not put out these bills that are really kind of aimed to be political minefields for people.
Yes, let's talk about some things happening for professional learning for our staff.
Yeah, Plymouth has always prided itself on being a staff development kind of mecca. And our old board president used to say, Richard York used to say, professional development, it's in our DNA. That was what he said. And it's true, because we have a kind of a continuous growth mindset. We're always doing quality control, learning new things, bringing in new ideas. And it's not just in the teaching and learning. It's not just for teachers. We have a master's degree program, which the board heard about the other night from some of the people that have graduated in our master's degree program. And but we have professional development for all kinds of staff, our support staff, some of the security systems that we put in over the last couple of years rely on technology, but also people have to be trained how to use that technology to do background checks for visitors to the building and all of that. Our custodial maintenance group, the new equipment that we had to purchase in order to deep clean spaces, that had to be learned, and people had to pick up on those things and do extra work in order to make it happen, and they did, and they have. And so the entire organization is based on professional development and continuous improvement. And so it's just part of what I was saying the other night at the board meeting was that I'm just really proud of the effort that our staff, all of our staff, put into growing and learning, just like the kids are growing and learning. Because it's kind of a big growth and learning organization. And I think people are happiest, too, when they're not just staying stagnant and stuck in a rut. They're happiest when they're getting a little challenge now and again and become an expert in something.
We've had some issue in busing.
Yes.
Let's tell our public all about that.
Yeah, in fact, we put out a message recently to all of our parents and all of our staff because the company that we hired to do our busing is just like we are experiencing a little bit too. They are the staff shortages, and so they don't have, sometimes if somebody's out sick, they don't have a person to run a route, and so they'll combine a route, and so that takes longer, and a bus driver has to learn that route, and there's more kids on that route, and so it just takes longer. And so,
and also when you're going to an athletic event, you might have to leave early or leave late because of the shortage. We have to wait for the driver to complete a route so they can come back and take another set of students.
Yeah, it affects everything. And so what we did was we put out a message to everybody just asking if anybody has interest. Here's what Johnson Bus pays, here's how much training they give you, some of the benefits. And we're just asking the public, if you know somebody that would be interested in being a bus driver, it's very flexible. You don't have to drive bus all day. You can do the morning route. You can do just an afternoon route. They're interested in helping anybody become a bus driver, and that would help alleviate some of the longer waits that we're experiencing. We've had some of our routes have taken a long time, and so kids are on the bus longer, kids are at activities a little later. All of those things are happening just because of the staff shortage. So we're hoping that by asking, our direct people that we can communicate with, our families, that maybe there's a dad or a mom or a sibling that might be interested in being a bus driver.
We've also had, it's made the headlines nationally, but we're experiencing a bit of shortage of staff shortages too.
We are.
Not as many teachers, but more in support staff shortages.
Yeah, we've been unable to fill a few positions this year from time to time. We have teacher aides that we've not been able to fill some of those positions. We've had a couple of teaching positions that we've been able to fill, but it's taken longer.
Yep.
And now we have the situation where teachers can kind of come and go because there's so many openings. It's not just us either. It's in lots of places. I know our neighbor Sheboygan has had up to 10 positions available for most of the first semester that they hadn't filled, teaching positions. So it's definitely there, and everybody's trying to hire earlier. Those kids that are coming out of college have kind of the pick of the litter now. They get some choice. That has inflationary pressure on wages, and that's all kind of juxtaposed against the fact that the legislature has held us at a 2020 rate. And so all of this is kind of playing together, and so the staff shortages are real. You see the signs in everybody's windows, hiring bonuses and those types of things. And so we're experiencing it, and I don't see any relief necessarily in sight. I know that our teaching, the people that are in college currently that are becoming teachers, the total numbers of those people has been decreasing for quite some time. Since about 2010, there's been a decrease in the number of people that have been declared as education majors. So that doesn't help anything either. Yeah, we're definitely experiencing it.
Are you having to sub a bit more yet?
I have been in a little bit here and there. We've been out subbing for some of the administrators here and there too. So there's all kinds of, there's a lot of opportunities.
There you go.
If you do have a bachelor's degree, you can also become a substitute teacher. And,
that's right.
And that's very flexible as well.
One thing that just occurred, we had we practice a few things at our school, couple of our elementary schools due to
Yes.
some smell.
Yes.
Leave it at that.
Right. Right. Very interesting. I learned a lot, and it was a good practice for us. So we did have to evacuate two of our elementary schools, Horizon Elementary and Fairview Elementary. And the reason is because there was the smell of a gas leak. And so what you do in those cases is you call up WPS, and WPS says their standard operating procedure is they say get out of the building. Well, in this case, as people went out of the buildings, they smelled it worse outside.
Yeah.
And so, ultimately what happened was the kids from Horizon came up to, because they had babies because of the daycare, they brought all those kids up to the multipurpose center at the high school.
Yep.
And they were in there. The kids at Fairview were out for less time, so they were out on the playground and they were playing. But when WPS arrived, they told us what happened, and what the story is that mercaptan is the chemical that's added to natural gas to make it smell so that you can tell that you've got a gas leak. So when your burner goes on in your stove and you can smell that rotten egg smell, that's mercaptan, and it's an additive to gas. Well, there's a tank south and west of Dundee where they store the mercaptan that all of us experience in our homes if we leave the gas on. Well, there was a valve on the tank, the filling valve, and they were working on that, and the workers broke it. And so out of that tank spilled about 1.5 to 2 gallons of mercaptan, this liquid. That liquid created a plume that traveled from southwest to northeast across all of our communities. And if you saw the Sheboygan scanner, it kept, you could see where it was traveling, because it was like a stink bomb. A stink bomb traveled to Lake Michigan, and it should have settled over Sheboygan Falls, but I guess, I don't know, maybe it kept on moving on. But it was really interesting, because you can picture this much of that chemical created a smell that evacuated schools and sent people into a tizzy for 50 miles.
Yeah.
So
That's something.
it was interesting.
It was great. But it was a good practice. I guess nothing else to bring Horizon students and some of the Horizon students and staff towards the high school to our new center.
Yeah, exactly. And we learned a few things about readiness and preparedness and what kinds of messaging that we have prepped and ready to go, because we sent out our text messages to parents and all that. So it was no harm done, but it was a good practice.
In wrapping things up, I want to tell everybody that at least at the high school level, we're already scheduling for next year. We're over the halfway point. We're now can see the end, and the students are actually scheduling next year's classes.
I know, it seems like the years keep going faster and faster.
Yes. But I certainly want to thank you for being on.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody that school board meetings are the third Tuesday of every month here in the high school amphitheater, starting at 7:30 p.m. And be part of what's happening in the Plymouth School District. Thank you again.
Thank you.
When we come back, I've got the mayors ready to sit on the hot seat and answer me some tough questions about February, so stay right with us. You're watching Action 14. Welcome back to Action 14. As promised, I've got the mayor here to tell us about what's happening in the city. I want to thank you for being on.
You're welcome, Mike. It's always a pleasure to come in and talk with you and our TV 14 viewers and try to update them on some of the things going on in the city.
We're on the second half of February, and how's winter treating you down at the city?
If I use the word beautiful, it might jinx us, so I won't go quite that far, but it's great. No, we're in good shape. We actually have a problem because the weather's so good that our second half of our salt shipment, which is supposed to arrive the end of February, we don't have any place to put it. And that's not a problem we've ever had before. So we're trying to come up with a solution to store it, and I use store it because we've already paid for it. We just don't know what to do, but we're scrambling, and of cross our fingers, there's still a lot of February left, so we might dwindle that pile down a little bit, but from what I understand, we've never had this problem before. So it's a unique problem, and like everything else, we'll solve it.
It's very nice that we have a year when you are unable to receive equipment that you've been purchasing to help you deal with winter, and it's not, you got equipment that's not here yet, and yet we're hanging in there very nicely.
It is kind of a act of mercy, I guess, or something, because you're right, that $250,000 piece of equipment hasn't arrived, and fortunately, we haven't needed the use of it, although we certainly had it planned to be used. So maybe there's a catch-22 there, but hopefully things will even themselves out, and we're comfortable, but you always don't want to count on things not going right, and that piece of equipment was multi-use, so we're really kind of stretching our luck here, and you know, anytime you do that, you know something's going to happen, so we got to be careful.
Yes, but at the very same, it's getting brighter out, the days are getting longer, and we can start to see spring coming at us.
Each day, one day closer.
That's
right.
right.
The way to look at it.
Yeah. Now, I know you got some information from the Commissioner of Railroads regarding issues that I believe Plymouth has with railroad signs.
We do, and it's been a long patience of waiting for the commissioner to come out with their ruling on all of our railroad crossings. They tackled the easy crossings, being all of them from over by the swimming pool all the way out to Willow Road. And we have some things we have to do with road markings and signage, not really big technical things on our part. The railroad has to do some cut back on trees and shrubs that they've already actually started on, and then we have a middle of March deadline, and we have an April deadline. Some of the painting that we can't do until the weather improves in order to do that. That's the good news. The bad news, I guess you could say, is we don't have any ruling yet on the two big issues, which I think everybody's concerned about, and that's Highland Avenue crossing and Pleasant View.
Right.
So those are the two really difficult process that they're going through, and so much of this is regulated by the Federal Transportation Act.
Right, it's not the city of Plymouth. The city of Plymouth cannot make these decisions.
No, and quite honestly, even the state can't make those decisions because they're federal guidelines. So we're in a situation of waiting for them to review, and of course, our crossings aren't the only ones in the entire state of Wisconsin or United States that are under review, because applications and amendments go in all the time, and the amount of paperwork, I've seen some of it, and you can measure it with a ruler real quick. So it's very technical, and then you get into all the regulations on part of that. So we're hoping maybe end of summer, we might get some notification on the direction of what kind of signals. And then, of course, you get into some of the financing and funding for some of those signals. The one on Highland, quite honestly, is the most complicated because of the railroad and two intersections, one on both sides. West side has two cross streets on it. The east side has one, and then you go up to Valley Road real quick. So it's a very complicated intersection with the sidewalks, and how do you regulate that with electronics? Electronics only work part of the time sometimes. And so we could really cause ourselves some problems operational if we don't get this figured out. But it comes down to us from the state, and they use the federal guidelines. It's going to be expensive. I've seen estimates $275 a crossing. So that's a lot of money. And where does it come from? We as a community don't end up footing the bill. Do we pay 10%, 20%? It depends on how the ruling comes down and what federal and state funds are available for that. So there's a lot of things to be mapped out. There are funds available. Right now, some of those crossing funds are committed all the way out to 23 and 24. So even if we get an order and we go on the waiting list, it might take 4 or 5 years for those to get put in, because you have to figure out the cost sharing aspect to it. So it's not a simple answer. There's a lot of federal regulations, and it is a unique crossing. If you compare that with Pleasant View, totally different. Pleasant View is a cakewalk when you look at that, but they're still in the review process, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay. It's going to be a while before anything can change.
Yeah, I would not expect ground to be broken next week on any crossing improvements, although I want the improvements like everybody, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things.
As long as we're talking safety, let's talk about the yellow cones for pedestrian crossings. Just because the cones aren't there doesn't mean we don't have pedestrian crossings.
Well, and I think that that's a good way to walk into some of the real concerns that we have in the community, and have always had in the community. And of course, we take the cones up for plowing in the winter. 10 or so days ago, there was an elderly lady, an adult lady in Sheboygan that was struck and unfortunately passed away on 14th Street crossing. And those are the kind of things that really hit home, and they're in your backyard. We don't want something like that to happen, and if we can alert the public into watching out for pedestrians, and they do have the right of way. You know, state law doesn't say only between June and August, you know, do you have to watch out for them? No, we have to watch out for them year long, and it's important to control your speed, give the right of way, social courtesy habits while driving. Those are good tools for all of us to practice, and certainly the last thing we want is to read about something like that happening in Plymouth. We're looking into using some of the federal money that was passed in the Title III or AR, whatever it is. There's so many I forget. That maybe we could use that for some permanent signage, which would be a sign along the road and some over the top of the road, so that you can see them from a distance and even light them up. So there's some cost sharing that goes with that. But if we can improve some of our alertness to motorists, I think that would be a step in the right direction. So we're looking at those. None of that is cheap. You know, when you start spending $5,000-6,000 for a permanent sign, the dollars add up quickly, and I could probably name a dozen or 2 dozen without even thinking, where we need to have some additional caution and warning for drivers to be alert, no matter what time of day it is.
Yep, we have pedestrian crossings in the city, and regardless if there's a sign there, the crossings are marked.
Yep.
And as a motorist, you stop and allow people to cross.
That's right. And it is state law. We do use sting operations, which unfortunately people get caught in.
Yep.
That happens. But we want to put the notice out there that we will enforce these regulations, and it's important because we don't want a tragedy to wake us up.
Right.
Yeah.
I should mention that we do have musical practice going on in the auditorium. You're going to hear a little bit of activity going on. The students are having a great time preparing for the musical coming up.
That is one of the best things that Plymouth has going. I've always enjoyed those. Glad to hear the noise.
Yeah, okay. One other thing is that you have voted to appoint a person to step into a vacant council seat. And it is kind of an, I'll let you explain it.
Well, it's a unique situation.
Unique. That's good.
And it's happened before in my term as mayor over the years. We've had 4 appointments, actually. One that almost duplicates the situation. We approved the past council meeting on Tuesday night, and the vacancy of the untimely passing of Jerry Matzdorf, his seat is up for election in April. So, of course, people can file for being on the ballot. We had one person that did file to be on the ballot, and looking at past practices, the council took that person and inquired would they like to be appointed now, serve 2 months, get your feet wet before the election, and that person agreed to that. Coincidence, it turns out to be Angie, Jerry's widow, who has graciously stepped forward, and she has agreed to be appointed, and she now sits on the council, and I think she'll be a good addition to the council. A little more youth than some of the rest of us on the council, so that's always a good thing. But her interests are Plymouth's interests, and that's what counts.
That is what counts. Let's just wrap things up by saying the city manager is going to be held off at least for another month.
I would say your guess is right on that, Mike. We do have a meeting coming up in the next week to map out a procedure. And I do think that starting in March, the council will approve a step process forward to take. Probably, let's cross our fingers and say we have someone on board in August or September.
Okay.
Would be a good, I think, estimate of things. It depends on, of course, what course of action they take and how big that pool is for interest. And I think Plymouth has a lot to offer, not only in business and education, opportunity to grow, but there's a lot of things continually going on, and I think it'd be a challenge for any administrator to come forward and pick up the reins and run.
Okay. We'll have more information next month on the future of replacement of the city manager.
That'll be a good update for March. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to thank you for being on.
You're welcome.
I should remind everybody the council meetings are the second and last Tuesday of every month down at City Hall, starting at 7 p.m. So be part of what's happening in the city, understand how everything works, and let's all enjoy living in Plymouth, Wisconsin. I want to thank you again for being on.
You're welcome, Mike.
When we
Appreciate
come
it.
back, we're going to be talking art. So stay right with us. We've got many things happening down at the Art Center. So stay right with us. You're watching Action 14. Welcome back to Action 14. As promised, we're going to be talking the arts. I want to thank you for coming on.
You're welcome, Mike. Always my pleasure.
Oh, it's always fun to talk about the arts in Plymouth, isn't it? It's just
sure is.
unbelievable what we have going on.
Absolutely.
And you've got so many things happening. Let's talk about the current show going on. And that's the Art of Printmaking, goes on for just now a couple more weeks.
Couple more weeks until March 4th, yes.
And the Art of Printmaking is a unique item to have down at the Arts Center.
Very unique show, correct. And 5 artists are in the show. And we do have a little slideshow that's on our website or on our Facebook page that if people want to tune in to see how, the artists, put this work together. It's really interesting.
And that's PlymouthArts.org. So you go to PlymouthArts.org, you can find a spot you can click on and see some information.
Click on the events and go to the exhibit, and you'll find it.
So after we're done with the art of printmaking, now we go into a big item. And the item is Alive in the Arts. That is something that's been going on for several years.
This is our 27th annual juried
something.
show.
It just seems like yesterday that we opened up the Arts Center, right?
Well, we're in our 29th membership year, but
Yeah.
for the first 2 years, we didn't have a juried show, so this is our
And there's some
27th.
unique timelines, though, because March 11th is the first timeline.
Right.
Our viewers have to respond by March 11th that they have something they would like to put in the show.
Right. So they can fill out the prospectus, and it's available online and on our on our website and Facebook page, both areas. And we have them at the Art Center. We made a couple thousand of these, so
Yep.
we have lots available. And all they do is fill out the prospectus and tell us which entries they would like the juror to look at, and send us those entries on a JPEG or a flash drive, JPEG image on a CD or a flash drive, and pay $25, and hopefully you'll get
Yep.
into the show.
And you will know you are in the show by April 9th. By
Correct.
April 9th. And now we're talking March, April, but this show is going to be out there until August.
Correct.
So you can have your art available for the public viewing, 2 items
Right.
for all summer.
And Denise Presnell is our judge this year, and Denise is a longtime artist and teacher from Lakeland University, and beautiful artist, and she's going to do a great job judging the show, so hopefully you'll get in.
Yeah, she's got 30 years of activities in the arts, of judging
Yes.
in the arts at the university level, so
Right.
you have a good person
We do.
to make the decision. And once you make that decision, you can deliver everything by April 30th, and then guess what? May 6th, we're already into May.
I
You have
know.
a reception. And then
Yes.
there's some cash involved.
Right, the first place winner will receive, the best of show winner will receive $500,
Yeah.
and then we pay down from there up to $1,000, so.
So it's going to
nice.
be, and I think more importantly to some of our artists, we'll have many people see their art for the first time possibly for all summer. So we go down and visit,
Right.
look at the art, see how some of it was judged, et cetera. It's a
Right.
unique item for artists in the area.
And, people should join us for the opening reception. They're always free. The art receptions are always free and open to the public. We always have a nice display of food and entertainment and a cash bar.
Yeah, yeah, it's always a good time.
It's a big party.
It is, and it should be, because to first of all be chosen to be part of the art show for all summer.
Yes.
And then a few of the people are going to be awarded prizes that evening.
That's right.
It's gonna be good.
It looks great on the resume, and just to even get into the show, it's a great resume builder.
March 11th, you must have that information in by March 11th to the art people.
Yes.
So stop down at the Arts Center. You have printed copies there. Yes, you can go online at PlymouthArts.org, but wouldn't it be better just to come down, fill things out right on the spot?
Check out the current show, take a look at the gift shop, lots to do.
Yeah, so one of the best gift shops in the area.
I think so.
Yes, yes, I think so too. Another thing coming up now, let's talk a wee bit of Irish. Let's talk about that.
A Wee Bit of Irish is a show that is going to be presented by our group called Celtic Folk. And they're going a little bit more Irish than just Celtic this spring. And it starts March 12th. And we have 6 shows of Celtic, well, a wee bit Irish. And 3 of the shows we're going to have some special guests join us.
That's right. It's one thing to have this local talent, okay? The Wee Bit Irish is mostly local talent. I know the names and recognize and all the people that will be performing. That's 3 of the shows.
Yes.
But now you have 3 shows that you're going to have a unique situation. The 3 shows are on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That's March 17th through the 19th.
Yes.
Those are the special shows because you've got something with harps involved.
Yes, the Harp Twins are joining us.
That's right.
The Harp Twins are from Chicago, and they have been with us before a couple years ago, and we invited them to come back, and we're so delighted to have them.
Yes.
Very talented young ladies and identical twins. They do a little bit of singing, but they are well known for their rock music played on the harp.
On the harp.
Yes,
Yes.
all the way to, everything in between, and mainly classical.
So you see, 3 of the shows, because things start up on the 12th and 13th. 3 of the shows are $15, Wee Bit of the Irish, but then you've got those 3 shows. That's, again, March 17th through the 19th.
Right.
Where it's $20. For an extra $5, you've got the twins. And the Harp Twins are unbelievable.
All of the musicians and singers in this show are fabulous. We just love them. And it's a nice added feature to have the Harp Twins join in.
Now, you've had Irish music playing for Christmas for many years.
Yes.
Well back into 20 years ago even, maybe?
Probably about 15,
Yeah.
16, yeah.
But now we're having, isn't it nice to have it now, a little bit of the Irish coming in
Yes,
now?
a little bit of the Irish is coming back, yes.
Yes, and that is, again, mark your calendars, March 12th and 13th, and also the 17th through the 20th.
Right.
There'll be 2 matinee shows, and the 2 matinee shows are without the twins.
Correct,
Your
yeah.
twins are on the 17th through the 19th.
Yes, those are all evening shows.
So you've got 6 shows to choose from, and you might choose both. know,
Yes, you
but you-
probably should.
But you have to get on board because there's limited seating.
Yes.
For a lot of reasons, limited seating,
Right.
and so make sure you get your tickets early.
The last time I checked, we still had tickets available for all 6 shows, but I would strongly suggest calling in early.
Yep, let's get that taken care of. So be part of a Wee Bit of Irish happening in March here in beautiful Plymouth, Wisconsin. Let's talk about one other item coming up before we close things out, and that's we've got the spring art tours happening again.
Yes, we're really excited about this year's Spring Art Tour. Again, we have 17 venues that are participating. Susan is out at Locks Hall now with Saranya, and we're inviting folks to get out there and visit her in her new location. But we have many of the returning artists joining us again, and a few new ones.
Yes. The dates for that are June 10th and 11th. On the 10th and 11th, I think it's important to note that stop number one,
Yes.
the Plymouth Arts Center.
Please.
You've got 7
Yes,
artists
7
there.
this year.
So there's 40 artists.
It's
out
at
there.
least 40 artists
Yes.
because some of the venues have more than one artist that are going to be displaying their work. And, they're going to be doing demos, not all of them, but, a lot of them will be doing demos. And they'll have snacks for you and maybe a door prize. So it'll be fun.
It is always fun, and it starts at 10 a.m. both days, 10 a.m. on Friday, 10 a.m. on Saturday. And as I said, your number one stop should be at the Arts Center, and then pick up directions and a list of the 17 different places.
Yes.
The 16 more places you can
Right.
attend.
I think I'd like to tell your viewers that the Plymouth Arts Center actually initiated this event for Sheboygan County. We are going outside of Sheboygan County by a little bit, a few miles, but we are the instigators, you might
That's
say.
right, yes.
That we wanted to showcase the many, many artists that are working from their homes. And this is your opportunity to get into their little studios and talk with them and buy artwork from them. And it's just a really fun weekend, and we hope folks will come out.
Yes, you can travel from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., depending upon if it's Saturday or Sunday.
Friday or Saturday.
Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
But it's always going to be a good time. It's the 8th annual trip around Sheboygan County.
Yes.
You know,
And we have 5,000 brochures, and they're coming into the Arts Center this week. So please stop down, and if you're a member, you're going to have one in your mail. But, you know, they're available, and we'll have them, you know, placed in a lot of different locations throughout the probably 4 counties.
right, it's going to
So.
be well, it's growing into something very nice. It really has, that the artists support each other, and
Yes, they do.
we support the artists.
I hope so.
Yes, yes. Well, I certainly want to thank you for being on. We've got so many things happening in the art, in the world of art here in Plymouth, Wisconsin.
Well, thank you for showcasing it.
Oh,
We-
it's
we-
just so much fun.
We think it's very special, and we hope our community does as
Yeah,
well.
so be part of what's happening in the arts here in Plymouth, Wisconsin. Be part of, just go down and see what they have down at the Arts Center and visit it and find out all of the different ways you can be part of the arts in Plymouth.
I did want to mention that Lori Beringer has her student art show coming up, and it's kind of sandwiched in between all of these events, and it's for 2 weeks. And please do come. She's going to be also displaying some of her artwork, and it's going to be a fun reception, and that is on March 11th.
11th, okay, March 11th. So just one, and that
I have all
does-
these dates running around in my head.
Yep, and that kind of in between the art of printmaking and then
Yes.
the art show coming in.
Yes.
So it kind of fits in that little spot right there.
Right.
Yeah, that works out well then.
Right.
Yes, stop down at the Art Center, see what's happening, and be sure to visit the gift shop and enjoy the arts of Plymouth.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Mike.
much for
Thank
being
you.
on. And I want to thank you for being with us. Until next time, I'll be seeing you on the radio. Bye-bye.